there are groups inside the Taliban which would not necessarily Siraj Haqqani, but others who can, at Pakistan's behest, pose a threat to India and its interests. And we have to be quite watchful of that.
Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. This is Nayanima Basu and you are watching The Gist. I have with me today a very special guest, Ambassador Jayant Prasad. He was India's ambassador to Afghanistan at a very difficult time from 2008 to 2010. He was also India's envoy to Nepal. We are going to understand from him the dynamics that are playing out now between India and the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Also, the fact that India has just reopened its embassy there, which was earlier operating as a technical mission since 2021. So we'll understand what's next, the road ahead for India and Afghanistan. Welcome to the GIST, sir, and thank you so much for your time.
You are welcome.
Sir, so understanding from you the fact that today India has finally taken the decision to not just engage with the Taliban, but to also deepen the cooperation with Afghanistan. It's not that I mean, all these years since 2021 August, when the Taliban came in Afghanistan, there was a channel of communication, of course, was going on, but this is like almost a full-fledged recognition. The embassy is now operating in full form. How do you see the dynamics playing out, sir? Because a lot of commentary is going on whether this is a good decision or this is going to be counterproductive.
I think this decision was in the offing, the way relations progressed over the last 2, 3 years. Because when we opened our technical mission, after that, JP Singh, the Joint Secretary, made 3 visits. Then Vikram Mishri met Mr. Motaki, not in Afghanistan, but in Dubai. And then there followed Motaki's visit to Delhi. So it was a natural progression. And I don't see how this is going to be counterproductive in any way because unlike Taliban 1, Taliban 2, there were two striking differences. One striking difference was that because India was engaged in helping the Northern Alliance in the period 1996 to 2001, there were 3 countries actually helping. 4 if I count Tajikistan. Besides India and Tajikistan, there were Russia and Iran. But this time around, neither India nor Russia nor Iran helped the opposition in opposing the Taliban. There are many groups operating in Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan, but these countries have remained aloof from them. The second was that between 1996 and 2001, there was a kind of permissiveness in Afghanistan. It is not that Afghan weaponry left behind by the Americans have not come back to India, to Pakistan, because every terrorist encounter that we've had in Jammu and Kashmir, we have found American weaponry, American rifles in particular, M4s and M16s. But the kind of support or permissiveness that existed pre 2001 in allowing anti Indian groups to operate freely in Afghanistan, that's no longer there. And that's a critical difference.
Mhm. That's interesting. You bring that point out, sir. That how in the last Taliban rule from '96 to 2001, we kind of gave a tacit support to the NRF. Now that also comes. I mean, why I asked it was counterproductive is because there was a time when India viewed Taliban as a terrorist organization, so to say. Today we are engaging with them. The dynamics, of course, have changed, but then again, how do you see the Pakistan factor playing out in all this? Because Today they might be having tensions with Pakistan, but tomorrow, what if Afghanistan Pakistan again comes together? How about that network?
Well, that's never going to happen because even between 96 and 2001, when relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan were much better than they are today, even then Pakistan made three distinct attempts, twice at the level of their foreign minister, to talk to Mullah Omar, who was the Amirul Momineen at that time, to resolve the border issue once for all by Afghanistan recognizing the Durand Line. But that didn't happen. In fact, an eyewitness to that meeting from the Pakistani side has told me, who went along with the Pakistan foreign minister, that when he made this proposition to Mullah Omar, he got a scolding. Mullah Omar said that how could two fraternal countries which were like twins talk about borders? And there was free movement on both sides. Both sides had Pashtun, and they were all of the same religion. They believed in the same ideology, and to talk about a border between them was anathema to him. And so this government has made it quite clear that they are upset by the Pakistan, meanwhile, during Ashraf Ghani's regime, erected the border fence. And any other Afghan government would not have permitted that, but it was permitted in the preceding 4 or 5 years.
Mhm. Sir, but then do you also think that today the reality also is that Taliban is in complete control of that country, unlike what it was earlier? And maybe that is also a reason why all these countries, including India, is engaging with them. And the fact that, yes, today they are having a lot of tensions with Pakistan, the ceasefire has, just been kind of drawn. But how far do you think these tensions are going to go on for between Afghanistan and Pakistan? Do you think this Durand line issue is going to stay for long? And
At
the
a
entire TTP sphere, of
subterranean,
course.
uh, at a subterranean level, these tensions cannot go away. But it it is not to say that there will be a recurrence of the type of violence that we saw, because Pakistan actually bombed places in Afghanistan earlier. But this is the first time that Kabul, the capital city, was bombed by Pakistan. And bombing is a wrong way to go around trying to control the Taliban or to try to intimidate Afghanistan. It's going to have long-term negative consequences for Pakistan within the Afghan polity and society. And so I feel that uh, the kind of conflagration that occurred earlier this month may not be repeated soon, but the tensions are not going to go away because Taliban is not going to relent on the other major preoccupation of Pakistan, which is to get the Taliban to disarm the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Because after all, the Afghan Taliban and the TTP fought the coalition forces together, and they organizationally and ideologically share many things in common. So the question of Pakistan getting TTP to disarm voluntarily or through pressure by the Taliban doesn't arise. And so long as TTP is given support, shelter, and sanctuary in Afghanistan, Pakistan is going to remain deeply unhappy because it's going to cause a serious security threat to them.
Hmm. And sir, how would you explain this entire emergence of the TTP, right? When Foreign Minister Muttaqi was here in Delhi earlier this month, and also, we hear all these voices coming out from Kabul that the TTP is basically an kind of an ad hoc creation, and this is happening inside Pakistan's territory. Pakistan should be controlling their internal matter. We have, I mean, Foreign Minister Muttaqi also said that there are no safe havens for TTP inside Afghanistan. So, how would you explain that to our viewers? How this entire TTP, this ideology, this segment, this entity came up in this discourse?
Well, there are a couple of things I have to explain, and I'm sorry if my answer is a bit long-winded. One is that the TTP arose just about the time the Pakistanis launched a military operation in Fata called the Zarb-e-Azb, and and they arose, and then uh, they slowly were straddling on both sides of the frontier. So that was the origin of the TTP. But the Pakistanis thought that they could control the TTP if they controlled the Taliban, and that didn't happen. And Motaki gave a very interesting reply. I saw the press conference in detail, the second one, in which women journalists were present. I don't know whether you were present or not. Were you?
Yes.
Acha. So he said that the TTP is striking deep inside Pakistan. So TTP has become a kind of mirror image of the Taliban because earlier it was Taliban which was sheltered and supported in Pakistan. And Pakistan, till the Taliban took over virtually, denied the presence of the Taliban inside Pakistan. They denied that the TTP was operating and the Shura of the TTP was operating from Pakistani cities. So similarly, it's a mirror image. Now that TTP is in Afghanistan, the Taliban is saying that TTP is not present in Afghanistan. It is, of course, present in Afghanistan, but they have taken a leaf out of the Pakistani book in dealing with Pakistan. Pakistan used to tell the government of Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani that if you want to deal with the Taliban, you deal with it in your own country. And if you want us to play a mediatory role or play the peacemaker, we are willing to do that. And so they were the ones who started this dialogue. And so similarly, the dialogue was started in 2021 and 22, and Siraj Haqqani was the go-between. He told the Pakistanis that he would arrange for the TTP leadership to meet with Pakistan. So Mataki said, to continue what he said, that how is it that Pakistan, with so many resources, with 8 times the population of Afghanistan, with a strong intelligence and strong military, because the Pakistan army is much stronger than the Afghan army or the Taliban forces. So how is it that TTP is able to cross from the fenced border and go deep inside Pakistan and strike in areas which are hundreds or tens of miles from the border? So Mataki said that this is, in that sense, a Pakistani problem. And that is what he meant. So now Pakistan is confronted by a problem that, in a sense, they created.
Mhm. So now also to understand, there is this two kind of commentaries going on that India is now engaging with the Taliban because of its own tensions that it's having with Pakistan, of course on Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor. Do you think that that is the reality, or do you think it was really a necessity to engage the Taliban now in the neighborhood because they are a reality now and they control 100% of the country?
I think the latter is the case. You've spelled it out quite well. After all, why does America continue to have a strong stake in Pakistan? It is because Pakistan can be a source of trouble. They have seen that in the past. So, similarly, for India to take out an insurance policy by engaging with the Taliban is a good thing for India because, after all, we have to ensure that the Afghan regime continues to adhere to the principle that it will not allow its territory to be used against countries in the region or the world at large, especially India, because we have a security problem created by terrorist groups which are inimical to our interests.
Right. And sir, also coming to the fact on India, Afghanistan again, I mean, I was there in 2021 when the embassy shut down and I got evacuated with the embassy staff only. And I saw how we just left it open and because of the security concerns that we have had at that point of time, mostly from the Haqqani network. Today, now that we have upgraded it from technical mission that was opened in June 2022 to a full-fledged embassy, do you think that security threat that we essentially had from the Haqqani network is all gone, or do you think because of the assurances given by the Taliban that there will not be a security factor there, I mean they will be given utmost security? And that's the question I had asked Foreign Minister Muttaqi also during the second press conference, and he said that Indian diplomats will be given all kinds of security. But you were there in 2008 and 2009 when the terrorist attacks had happened. So, how do you see that aspect playing out today, sir?
I think our diplomats will have to be careful. They have been careful in the past, but now they'll have to be particularly careful. I don't think in the changed circumstances, Siraj Haqqani and his group of fighters create a particular problem for us because our equations have changed. But this is not to say that Pakistan has no influence in Afghanistan because the Afghan Taliban are also very badly divided. Motaki's own deputy, Tanik Zai, who was helping Mullah Baradar in the Doha office and negotiating the deal with the Americans, he spoke against the present policies pursued by the Taliban and he left for Dubai precipitately because he wanted to avoid an arrest warrant issued in his name by the leader of the Taliban, Hibatullah. And so there are groups inside the Taliban which could not necessarily Siraj Haqqani, but others who can, at Pakistan's behest, pose a threat to India and its interests. And we have to be quite watchful of that.
Okay. But when you say, sir, that the equation has changed with the Haqqani network, can you elaborate what do you mean by that? And also, is this true that Sirajuddin Haqqani is having a kind of, rift with Habatullah Akhundzada on some of the issues concerning especially women's education and rights in Afghanistan?
From what I can make out from here, it's very hard to say what is actually happening in Afghanistan because I have very little insider information. But what I read in the press and what has been reported from people with whom I'm in touch with in Kabul, they say that there is some kind of a tension between the younger leadership and the older leadership. After all, Siraj's father belonged to the Mullah Omar generation, and he is no more. And Mullah Omar's son is the is in power. He is the defense minister, and Siraj looks after the home ministry. And so they both were of the view, and they articulated this view in 22 very early, soon after we opened our technical mission, that girls' education should be allowed beyond the middle school level. And at that time, to deal with this growing criticism, Hibatullah arranged a dirgah of clerics and elders, and they met in Kabul. And I remember reading the speech that Hibatullah made then. He said that Afghanistan will in future be guided by the Sharia, and that any decisions that are taken will be taken by the clerics and under the Sharia. And after that, I haven't heard any public criticism. Although Mataki, I think all of you women journalists, I must say hats off to you. You put a lot of pressure on him in that press conference in Delhi. And so he was forced to say that women's education and girls' education is not haram. But I have not seen any step being taken at any level in Afghanistan to restore women's education.
Mhm. And sir, when you say, especially on that particular point, that our diplomats should be careful, I mean, we are now going to resume all our projects there. There, of course, has to be easing of the visas, which has been very unfortunate with what we've done in the immediate aftermath of 2021. But when you say that our diplomats should be careful, and now that the embassy is opening its doors, what exactly do you mean by that? And do you also think, sir, additionally to that, should we open the consulates that we had, which were critical points that we had, especially in Kandahar and Herat, Jalalabad? Of course, Mazar-e-Sharif can probably be controlled from Kabul concerning the business part of it. What is your point of view on that, sir?
Well, I'm very partial, and my views may not be very popular with everyone, but I feel that we have to open our consulate. And even when we were attacked in 2008, uh, July, Dr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister at that time. And when I came back for consultations, he said to me that we have to pare down our embassy strength and we have to uh, close our consulates. And I told him that you would do it under very strong protest from me because I put it to my staff in Kabul that anyone who wanted to go back to India was free to do so, and nothing would be held against them if they decided so. And not one person came back. All of them decided to stay. So there is a certain uh, presence that we've had. After all, what is the point of security? Is not the only point why we are in Afghanistan. We are in Afghanistan, and government of India has repeatedly said that in the past that we are there because we want to maintain the people to people ties that is have existed between India and Afghanistan. And remember, there was a big hiatus in our relationship between 1992 and 2001, even when the Mujahideen government was appointed. And after the withdrawal of the former Soviet Union, when Najibullah's regime fell, then we pared down our embassy to a bare minimum. And so we had hardly any presence in Afghanistan. And then that presence was completely wound up in 1996. So for 5 years, we had no representation. And that creates a big gap. I'm glad that you mentioned this thing about the visas, and I'm very happy with this courageous step that government has taken to open up visas. So the policy has changed since the end of April. There is a new visa rule that has been promulgated and notified. But under that, visas still have not been given liberally, and the pace is very slow. And I'm happy that the External Affairs Minister also said that we have under active consideration starting off student visas to enable students to come back and rejoin their courses which they were forced to abandon in 2001 because all the visas were cancelled. So he has said that not only can they come back, but they can also have a new visa regime for students to actually physically study in Indian universities. Because ICCR has revived its scholarship scheme for Afghanistan, but it's only online. And so it's time that in order to fulfill our commitment to revive people to people ties with Afghanistan, we have to open up and become more liberal. Also, on the medical side, there are many things that can be done. We have to have a system of granting emergency visas for life threatening cases. We have to revive the visas for Afghan children who used to come for heart surgeries in India, all paid for and sponsored by the Afghan Red Crescent Society. So when I was in Afghanistan, at least an average of 100 young patients used to come, children, sponsored by this Red Crescent Society to Indian hospitals for heart surgeries. And they were coming to India with an attendant, they were getting the surgeries done and going back to Afghanistan. That must restart.
That is true, and good that you said that point, sir, because I remember after 2021, in fact, I mean, we journalists were getting so many calls from students who had valid admissions in universities across India, and all their visas got revoked, and their academic year was lost. Even for medical, patients who were supposed to come here, they never got the visa. So I hope that will all be smoothened out, sir. But when my last question to you will be, and I know you have to go, what do you think now that we've taken this unprecedented step in terms of engaging the Taliban, and also the kind of geopolitics that's being played around? What do you think should be India's short-term and long-term strategy? Because end of the day, we are talking about Afghanistan, where no government has ever been permanent, so to say, and there is of course a Pakistan factor. There's again an US factor coming up with all the noise that Trump is doing, President Trump, on Bagram Air Base. So, do you think India should have a short term and a long term strategy ready, so to say?
In a sense, I'm glad you asked this question because we have a permanent short term and medium term strategy and a long term strategy. And our strategy has always been, and it hasn't been fulfilled because of the turmoil in Afghanistan, to get the Afghans to stand on their feet and take their own decisions. Because we know from history and from politics that any Afghan that takes a decision which is pro Afghan cannot, by definition, be anti Indian. The effort of Pakistan has, besides settling the Durand line and getting the TTP to disarm, has also been for Afghanistan to end any Indian presence in Afghanistan or to severely restrict it. But that hasn't happened. So, our short term objective is to get the Afghans to take their own decisions and stand on their feet. Our long term objective is also very clear, but it's more difficult to achieve in the present circumstances. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. Our long term objective is to make Pakistan a kind of go between Central Asia and South Asia, which essentially means India, that it becomes a hub for energy, transport, uh, investments, and so on. But that can't happen unless we also find a way of dealing with Pakistan. because it is Pakistan which effectively blocked our way to not just Afghanistan but to Central Asia. So Mr. Mutaki made a lot of noise about, he spoke very optimistically about how, despite the financial constraints, Afghanistan was going ahead with the pipeline construction. And they are constructing not just TAPI, they are constructing not just the pipeline, but also transmission towers to get Tajik and Kyrgyz electricity to, in the first place, to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and in the second phase to South Asia. But all that is going to happen only when there is some leeway that we have with Pakistan to allow transit, both energy transit and road transportation through Pakistan and Afghanistan to Central Asia.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much, sir, for giving us all those inputs and telling us what is the road ahead. That was Ambassador Jayant Prasad, India's former ambassador to Afghanistan, telling us what India needs to do and the fact that engaging the Taliban was the right step that India has taken. Thank you for watching this interaction on The Gist.